Hello everyone and welcome back for another after-school professional development. We want to welcome everyone that's tuning in live. We also want to welcome everyone that is watching later on. These videos are available at any point on our YouTube channels, and you are welcome to watch these at any time and complete the assignment that's on these videos, and also fill out the survey. So these videos are for your convenience, and we really are very glad that you're here joining us today. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to switch over to my screen, and we're going to talk a little bit today about how to create quizzes in Google Forms. So today's session is on creating quizzes in Google Forms. Now you can get this slideshow, and we're not going to go through this entire slideshow. There's several little animated GIFs that you can go through and watch this slideshow, but this slideshow is available to you if you want to go to the link that's at the bottom here. Or if you want to look in the description of this video, there's also a link to this slideshow in the description of the video. So we want to welcome you to download this video or this slideshow and follow along with us. We're going to be going over some of the things you can do with Google Forms. So today's training, some of the things we're going to cover in the training today. First of all, we're going to look at getting started with Google Forms. And getting started leads us into adding some questions to Google Forms, and then also adding pictures and videos and where you can add those pictures and videos, and some ideas regarding pictures and videos for Google Forms. We're also going to look at, and the main point today is creating a quiz in Google Forms. So we're going to look at how to convert a regular Google form into a self-grading quiz. And then we're going to kind of take a step back from the self-grading quiz and look at forms with multiple pages, and then get into adaptive tests, which are tests that will go to a particular page based upon the answer that the student gives. For instance, if you answered incorrectly on question 1, it might go to an easier question. But if you answered correctly, it might go to a more difficult question. And then finally, we're going to look at how you share your Google form and some of the ways that you can share your Google form out. So what are some of the ways we can use Google Forms? Google Forms is a great way to gather information regarding anything. So if you're taking a survey, or you're doing a class poll, or a mock election, we've used Google Forms here in Wise County for all of those purposes, and just gathering that information. Collecting student data is another way that you can use Google Forms. If you have an address or a phone number that you'd like to gather from students for contact or whatever, this would be a great way for students to be able to fill that form out and give you that data. It's also a great way for volunteers to sign up for services. So if you wanted to sign up for a particular event, such as a potluck dinner, Google Forms is a great way to set that up as well. You can also use Google Forms, speaking of sign-up sheets, to sign up for events in total. A good example of that, our church, Clay Morgan, here in Wise, uses Google Forms to create a registration for our Awana program. And we've seen several churches that use that and several organizations that use that for a sign-up sheet or a registration sheet for their events. Another way you can use Google Forms is for fundraising order forms. A great example of that, Jason Hicks here in our department had a donut order that he was doing for his daughter. And so he created a Google form that folks could go to, fill out what they wanted as far as the donuts, and she was able to get a nice spreadsheet that she could turn in as an order form. And then finally, Google Forms, because it's a data collector, is great for tests and quizzes. And that's what tests and quizzes are. They're collecting data, collecting information regarding a student's knowledge. So a Google form would be a great way to set up and create a test or a quiz. So let's look at how we get started with Google Forms. One of the ways you can get started with Google Forms is by going to Google Drive and creating a form inside of your Google Drive. So to get to Google Drive, as we know, you go to drive.google.com and you type that into any web address. If you're not already signed into your Google account, it will ask you to sign in when you go to Google Drive. If you're already signed in, you'll see your picture up here in the top right or whatever symbol represents your name. And then you will see Google Drive and all the information, all the things that are in your Google Drive. To create a Google form using Google Drive, you'll simply click the blue New button, go down to More, and choose Google Forms. And that will pull up the Google Forms creator. You can also, on another way you can create Google Forms, is to go to forms.google.com, which will reroute you to docs.google.com/forms. But this is the Google Forms creator. This allows you to create from a template or just a blank Google form. And it also lists any Google Forms that you currently have. This one is really good if you'd like an idea for a use of Google Forms and you want to see all the template availabilities that there are. The Google Drive creation, though, is much better if you're looking to organize your file. Google Forms, just like a Google Doc or Google Sheet or a Google Slide, is a file. And that file has some form of organization within your Google Drive. So if you create it within Google Drive, you are able to create it within a folder or move it to a folder using Google Drive. If you create it from forms.google.com, it's just going to throw it into the root of your Google Drive, and then you'll need to reorganize that later. So really, it's up to you how you want to start creating a Google form. You can do this through Google Forms website, the forms.google.com, or you can go through Google Drive, clicking New, go to More, and choose Google Forms. But both of them will take you to the exact same place, and that is the Google Forms editor. And this is where we end up, is the Google Forms editor. You'll notice that I have Untitled Form here and at the very top. This is simply where I type the title for my form. So if this is going to be a test, a quiz, a survey, mock election, whatever, order form, registration, sign-up sheet, you simply type that into one of these title locations. So I can type it in here if this is going to be a quiz on Chapter 7. You'll notice it automatically saves my changes in Google Drive. But hey, it didn't change this up here. There's a really quick trick you can do, and that is to simply click inside the title at the top, and it will change it to whatever you've typed in the title bar here. Next is given the form description. The form description is the place where you will give any directions or information regarding your form. So if this is a form that's a quiz, I may want to type in answer all questions to the best of your ability. Read directions carefully. If it's a survey, please take this survey. This survey is used for this or that. If it's a mock election, please vote for only one candidate. These are just directions for the Google form as a whole. Right below the description, you'll see my first question. This question is, by default, a multiple choice question. I can edit this question by simply clicking into a question. Now, that's going to be our typical trend when it comes to Google Forms. You'll have several little sections here that they look like that they're not open for editing because you don't have a cursor there. All you do to edit any part of a Google form inside the form editor is to click on that section. So if I click on the question area, it's going to pull up the question editor. My toolbar will move down into this question section. If I click back up here into the title, the toolbar moves back up into the title, and it opens up the editing on this title. So that's going to be our trend when we go through and we edit these parts of the Google form. We simply click first, and then we can start clicking to edit. So the first thing that it asks in the question editor is, What's the title of the question? Now, this is the actual question itself. So if your question is, who was our first president? You would type in, who was our first president in the untitled question. If your question is, what is the sum of 3 and 5? You might want to type in 3 plus 5. Whatever your question title is, or whatever your question is, you type it there where it says untitled question. And then you're given the ability to change the type of question that you have. So by default, it's set as a multiple choice question. I can choose a short answer question. I can choose a paragraph question, and that gives more of an essay type of answering. Multiple choice, as we've seen. Check boxes, which are multiple select. Drop down, which gives a multiple choice in a drop down menu. If you've ever filled out a form online and you've had that drop down menu, this is one way you can create that. A new feature to Google Forms this year is the file upload feature. The file upload feature allows you to have your submitters upload some file either from their computer or from their Google Drive into your form. This is really handy if you have a question or two about some topic and then you want students to upload a file, such as a slideshow, that they would turn into you using Google Forms. This is a really neat feature and it's brand new this year. Another option is the linear scale. The linear scale allows me to set up a scaling, such as a voting grid or a voting scale, that I would be able to go in and say, how would you rate this training? Or how would you rate this? Or how would you classify this? And you would have multiple options along that scale, either from 1 to 5, 1 to 10, and they would select the appropriate number that they believe they would rate that as. So you think about that as the rating scales or the Likert scales, as you would in a typical survey. The multiple choice grid gives you that Likert scale on multiple levels. So it sets it up in rows and columns where you would have, let's say, row 1 would have one question and column 1, column 2 would have different options. So on a scale from least to greatest, 1 to 5, you would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in your columns. Rate each of these services, TV, internet, telephone service, or whatever, and they would be able to rate all of those within one question. And then finally, your input of time and date is also an option for question. Since we're looking at a quiz though, and in particular, a self-grading quiz, we're going to need to stick to the multiple choice option. As it stands right now, Google Forms is not able to self-grade a question that is not multiple choice. So I need to use one of these multiple choice options, the multiple choice, multiple select checkboxes or drop down, in order to have it self-grade using the automatic quiz grader. So I'm going to select multiple choice and I'm going to fill in my answer choices. I do that by simply clicking inside option 1 and I type in the first answer choice that I want to give them. 3 plus 5 is, let's say, answer choice number 1 is 4. To add another option, I simply click on Add Option, and I type in my second choice. We'll say 9. Third option, 8. Fourth option, 6. So we have 4 options here, 4, 9, 8, and 6. You can add as many as you like by clicking on Add Option. If you need, you can click on Add Other, and it will add in this selection that says Other, and they're able to fill in their answer. But this is how you create a multiple choice question. You'll notice as I'm hovering over each of these questions and each of these answers, there's a little icon over here that pops up. This icon is the picture inserter. This allows me to select and insert a picture in place of an answer choice. This is really neat if you want to insert a graph that you may have saved on your computer or in your Google Drive. It's also great if you have answer choices that you would like to use on an elementary level. And the students may not be able to read, but they could pick out pictures. And so the question that you're asking them in total is, which of these is a reptile? And you have different pictures of animals, and one of those is a reptile. All I do to insert a picture into any of these answer choices is I click on the picture icon, and I can either upload it from my computer, I could take a snapshot, and that would use my webcam. I can upload it by URL, so if I know the web address of a picture, I can upload it. I could go through my photo albums, my Google Drive, my shared with me section, or any recent pictures. Probably one of the coolest though is the search option. Search allows me to search through Google Life and stock images for pictures that are royalty free, which means I can use these. I don't have to worry about, am I violating any copyright issues? If I'm looking for a picture of, let's say, a frog, I type in frog, search for it. If I'm looking for, in particular, a green picture of a frog, I can select the color green. It's going to find green frogs or red frogs, orange frogs, yellow frogs. And I simply select the picture and click select. And now that option is now a picture as well. So whenever I viewed that, it would have a picture as the answer choice. I don't need a picture as an answer choice for 3 plus 5, so I'm just going to click the X and delete that picture out. But that's how I create that first question. To create another question, I use the toolbar on the right and click the plus button that says Add Question. You'll notice it creates another question below the first question, and I'll type in another question. 7 minus 2. And we'll give some answer choices. 3, 5, 9, 7. Now, one thing that you'll want to look at when you're creating a test or a quiz is the fact that you may need a name question in here. So I've already created 2 questions. I don't want to create a question that's below here that says name. So I'm going to show you a trick. If I click up here at the top where my title is, and then I click the Add Question, it's going to add the question right below the selection that I had. So if I've selected the title and I hit the plus button for Add Question, it will create a question right below the title. I can also reorder my questions by clicking on these little 6 dots, holding in and dragging it up and down so that it reorders that question. So now 7 minus 2 is my first question and 3 plus 5 is my second question. For this question, I did want to have it as a short answer and have it as a name question so that I know who's actually filling this test out. So now I have a 2-question quiz. Let's add one more question. I want to go down here to the 3 plus 5, click plus, add another question. We're going to do 4 minus 1. Answer choices of 1, 2, 3, and 5. So now I have 3 questions in a quiz. A couple other things that I can add into this quiz if I want to can be found in the toolbar that hovers on the right. You'll see the big T and the little t that allows me to add in a title and description. And this is really like a subheading. So if I want, I can, right below name, add in a subheading of subtraction. And I'm going to drag this subtraction question here into that. And right below this subtraction question, I'm going to add another heading that says addition. So now I have separated out my form quiz so that I have subtraction has a heading here, and I could give some directions for that. And then I have an addition question under the addition heading. Simply text that you can throw in. If you're an English teacher or a reading teacher, this would be a great place for you to throw in a paragraph or a section of reading that you would like your students to read, and then answer a few questions regarding that reading passage. Speaking of adding things in that you may want to ask questions about later, you also have a picture option that you can add in an image. So, something this would come in very handy for is, let's say I want to add in an image, and I'm going to search for one because I don't have one on this computer of this. Let's do the equation y equals x. You need to find one that is y equals x here. There we go. So I've added in a picture that is y equals x. I can resize this picture. I can click on the little 3 dots and center it. Then I may want to add in a question below this that says, what equation of this graph? Answer choice number 1, y equals 2x. Answer choice number 2, y equals x. Answer choice number 3, y equals negative x. Answer choice number 4, y equals 3x. There is no equation editor on Google Forms just yet, so there wouldn't be an easy way for me to throw in an x squared onto this answer choice, but I can use any equation editor that I already have, such as the Microsoft Equation Editor in Word or the equation editor that you can get in Google Docs, and then take a picture of that using a snipping tool such as the Windows snipping tool or the function on a Macintosh of Command-Shift-4, and be able to snip out the picture of that equation and then insert it in as a picture as an answer choice. So there are always ways around those complicated issues of not having an equation editor built into Google Forms or not having this or that built in. That's a really neat way of adding in questions. You can also snip out questions that you already have on another document and insert them in as pictures as well, because you have the picture inserter on the question title as well as the answer choices. So here I have a 4-question quiz that's inserted a picture. I've got multiple choice up through here. I've got my name. A couple other options that we have here, and I'll deal with the last one in a minute, but another one is adding in a video. So let's say at the very top of this quiz, I want to add in a YouTube video of the day. Let's say you've got a video of yourself teaching this class or teaching a lesson. You can add that video in as long as it's on YouTube. So you just click on add video. You could do a YouTube video search, or if you know the URL of your YouTube video, you click on URL and you paste it in there. And then you're able to have that video as an option and a resource for that Google form. And we'll talk about sections in a minute, but this is a Google form that we have. It's a really nice looking Google form. If I want to preview what it looks like, I have a little preview button. It's the eye up here. I click on the eye. This is what my Google form looks like as is. Pretty nice. Close that tab out. Because we're going to look at how do we get this thing to automatically grade. It is a multiple choice test. That's the only type of questions we've used. So we can have this thing automatically grade using the quiz creator in Google Forms. So to do that, I simply click on the gear up here beside the send button. It's the settings button. And I choose the quizzes tab. And I'm going to toggle this to say, make this a quiz. By toggling that, it now allows me to assign point values and allow for auto grading. So do I want it to release the grade immediately, or do I want to release it later after manual review? That's totally up to you. And do I want my respondents to see their missed questions, correct answers, and point values? Again, those options are totally up to you. Select the quiz options that best fit what you want this Google Form quiz to do, and then click Save. Now, this is set up as an auto grader. It doesn't look much different, does it? That's because we've not gone into each question. When I click on a question, you notice that it has an answer key. All I have to do is click on answer key for each question. I assign it a point value. So let's say this is going to be worth 10 points. And then I go through and I select the correct answer. 7 minus 2 is 5. That's my correct answer. And then I click on edit question to go back to the question editor. Go down to the next question. Again, like I said before, if we want to edit a question, we simply click on it, and then we can do whatever we need. We're going to click on answer key, give it a point value, select the correct answer. 4 minus 1 is 3. If we want, we can add answer feedback for any of these questions by clicking on answer feedback. We'll click edit question again. Go down to the next question, answer key, continue on with the process, adding points and selecting the correct answer. Edit question. So now I have a self-grading quiz. Each of these questions will automatically grade themselves, and as my settings that I had set, it's going to automatically give the student their grade after they submit. So as a student, I would be able to preview this, type in my name, go through and fill out the quiz, click submit, and then view my score. I got 20 out of 40 points. And it tells me which ones I got right and which ones I got wrong. And it tells me what the correct answer was. Now on the teacher side, you'll notice that there is a responses tab that has now a 1 in it. So before we talk about the responses tab, let's talk about how do I send this quiz out. This quiz can be sent out by clicking on the send button. One thing you do not want to do, you do not want to copy the URL that you have of your Google form as it is in editing format, because this will just give the access to that editable Google form. It will have the students that will be sending you emails. They can't access it because it's asking them to verify that they have access to this Google form. And it's just really confusing if you try to go through that route. To send the Google form, I want to click the send button. I'm given 3 options to retrieve answers from this Google form. I can either email this Google form and have it attach the Google form in, so it's going to just type in someone's email address. So if I want to send it to Jesse Roberts, it's going to email him, and I can include the form in email so he can just fill it out in email. Doesn't even have to actually open anything up. And click send. and it will send it to that person. I can send it to as many people as I want that I have their email addresses. Probably the easiest thing for you to do, though, for a classroom setting is to use the link button in the middle, the link tab, and copy this link. Now that's a very long link. Thankfully, Google Forms gives you the option of shortening the URL. So I'll put a check in shorten URL, and now it's a shorter URL that I can copy and I can throw up on a Google slide, I can throw up on a Google Doc, I could throw it up on the smartboard or up on my TV or whatever I've got to project to. And the students will be able to write that down or copy that. I can also paste that into Google Classroom. And speaking with Google Classroom, if I paste it into Google Classroom and the students complete this quiz in a Google Classroom assignment, as soon as they click submit on the quiz, it also submits their assignment. So that's an automatic on both sides with that. Once they submit the quiz, it does mark the assignment as complete as well. So that's a really neat feature that they added in last year for Google Forms, but I can add that Google Form link in my Google Classroom. If I have a website, I can also embed this Google Form into my website using this iframe HTML code. So if you're any good with website design and you've got your own website out there, you can use this to embed into your website. And you can also change the height and width just using these boxes instead of having to go actually into the HTML code and changing the height and width inside there. So there are 3 ways that you can send your Google form out and collect responses. So now dealing with the Responses tab. The Responses tab is where you will find any responses from folks who have filled out your Google form. I simply click the Responses tab, and it gives me a summary of anyone who has filled out my Google form. So as it is right now, I've only had 1 response for my Google form. I can go ahead and fill out another quick response. I want to here, so I have more than 1. Let's get this one filled in. Now I've got 2 responses. You see it kind of gives this overview of the responses that you have. I can also click on the Individuals tab. Individual responses will give me an individual look at each response. So I can see how Daniel did. Then I click on this arrow right here where it says next response and see how Jesse did. I can print that response if I want to. Here's also where I would turn on or off the ability to accept responses. So if I want this quiz to not be available after a certain day, I just simply say I'm not accepting responses anymore, and it turns it off and no one can respond to that quiz. If you want your responses in a spreadsheet, you can also get your responses in a Google Sheet by clicking on this green Create Spreadsheet button on the Responses tab. Clicking on Create Spreadsheet will, the first time, ask you what you want this spreadsheet to be called, or if you have an existing spreadsheet that you'd like to have all of these quizzes or all these forms go to. You can have one master spreadsheet if you'd like. But I'm just going to go ahead and have it create this spreadsheet. I like the name, Quiz on Chapter 7 Responses. Looks pretty good. So I'll click Create. And then it creates a spreadsheet that has all of my responses on it. This is really handy if you want just a nice little printout of everybody's responses and how that they answer each question. This is really good for remediation purposes because I'm able to go through and see, okay, well, looks like Daniel knows 7 minus 2, but he's struggling with 4 minus 1. He answered 2 on that. Jesse did really good with that one, but he's struggling here. Jesse got 3 out of the 4. He got 30 out of 40 points. So he's doing pretty good. Daniel really needs some work on equations, it looks like. So I'm able to quickly look at how my students are doing based upon each of their responses in this nice spreadsheet. So that is setting up an automatic grading quiz in Google Forms. And by the way, if you have any questions, if you're watching live and you have any questions, you can ask questions in the live chat that is over on the left, and you'll be able to ask us any questions and we can answer those questions right here on the live chat. If you have any questions you're watching later on YouTube, feel free to ask those questions down in the comments below. We try to answer those questions as quickly as we can. You can also email any of us. But those are some of the options for asking questions and having them answered. All right, so now I have a self-grading quiz. It's really nice, it's really neat. But let's go a little bit deeper with this idea of creating a quiz. So to go a little bit deeper, I am going to want to create another quiz real quick. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to use the assessment template that they have. This is a nice little template. And we're going to look at computer adaptive quizzes, computer adaptive testing. By computer adaptive testing, what I mean is that the question will direct to another question based upon its answer. For instance, if you have a student who answers question number 1 correctly, question number 2 may be a more difficult question to test and challenge that student. If they answer that one incorrectly, it may go down to a little bit less challenging question, so that the test itself adapts to the level of the student's ability. This is a very advanced and very involved process when it comes to creating a computer adaptive test in Google Forms, because you are looking at creating sections and telling questions to go to a section based upon the answer that was selected. Again, this is very, very involved. We're going to get involved in this. We have this quiz. Our first question, let's say, who was our first president? And we have our answer choices. One thing that you'll notice, it automatically set this quiz on me. I'm going to turn this feature off. The reason I'm going to turn this feature off is because this is going to leave several questions unanswered, because you're going to have multiple questions in your Google form. If I answer question 1 correctly, there's going to be a question that I never answer because I answered question 1 correctly. I go to a harder question. I may never go to that easier question. So there's going to be some questions that are left unanswered. If you leave this on as a self-grading quiz, it's going to count those questions incorrectly. So the student, when they get their grade, it's going to show that they did not answer a certain question and didn't get a question correct. So their grade's going to be off a little bit. So I did turn the quiz feature off on this form. So our first president, John Adams, George Washington, Abe Lincoln, and let's say Barack Obama. Can't spell Barack. Obama. Is there 2 R's? I think it's just 1 R. It's a CK. I believe that's correct. So, after this first question, I'm going to add a section. Because this is going to be a question per question test, I add a next section. Question number 2, who was our 16th president? And I'm going to consult my history major here. That is Abraham Lincoln, correct? Okay. I was a math major, and I'm a math teacher by trade, I guess, and history was never my strong point, so something I probably should definitely know. Abe Lincoln, JFK, LBJ, Thomas Jefferson. And right after this one, I'm going to add another section. This question type, again, we're going to do short answer on this one. Who is our current president? I'll delete some of these other things out. I may want to fill in sections, so this could be easier, harder. You can title those sections however you want. You can even leave them blank. The important part of this is to set this quiz up so that each question will go to a section based upon how the student answers that question. So our first question is, who was our first president? At the bottom of this question, at the right, you'll see 3 dots. Click on those 3 dots and choose Go to Section based on answer. This is where we choose where this test goes based upon the answer. If they answer George Washington, I want them to go to section 3. That's the harder question. If they answer any of the other questions, I want them to go to section 2 because that's the easier questions. So you'll notice this reads fairly logically that I have a question, I have answer choices, and based upon each answer, okay, if they choose John Adams, they're going to go to section 2. That's the question that they ask about the 16th president. If they answer George Washington, they're going to go to section 3. That's where they answer the question of who is our current president. Same thing for Abe Lincoln. It goes to section 2, the easier question. And if they answer Barack Obama, it goes to the easier question. So you can see how you can get involved with this section. So if I wanted to, I could go from this question and I could say, add a section right below this question. Even easier, we add a question. What is your name? It'll be a short answer question. And we choose section 2 to also go to a section based on answer selection. So 16th president was Abe Lincoln. I want them to go to section 4 if they answer that. So if they finally get one correct, they go to the harder question. If they don't get one correct, they go to the even easier section. So now I have a quiz that will take the students to a particular question based on how they answer that question. So let's preview it. I have my name, email. First question, who was our first president? I'm going to say John Adams, just because I want to get it incorrect. See if it does right. Yeah, it goes to the easier question. You may not want to label that easier because it will say easier on the student's test, but I just labeled it just so that we know which one we're going to. Who is our 16th president? Let's say JFK. All right, it is going to the even easier question. So I do know I've got this correct. What's your name? No matter what I typed in, it's going to go to this last question. Or if I wanted to, I could make it a multiple choice and have it go to a particular question or just submit it if they get that incorrect. Current president. And submit. And now you see I do have a response there. This would be one that you would probably want to have a manual grading on, or you could possibly tie in something such as Flubaroo that would answer, that you'll be able to answer your questions and have it grade using Flubaroo. And if you need help using Flubaroo, I will link a video to how to set up and use Flubaroo, and we'll throw that up here on the screen here in a minute so that when you're watching this later, you'll be able to see that, or you can look in the description below. But we'll send you a link to how to use Flubaroo in a video. But that's how I set up a computer adaptive test using Google Forms. This is a really neat feature that I'm able to use. And all it does is it plays upon the idea of adding sections into my Google form. Feel free to go through this slideshow that I've shared with you. And there are several little animated pictures in here that you can go through and see how to use Google Forms if you need to go back and refresh after this video. Or you can always go back and watch this video. That's the great thing about having these videos, is you're able to go in, pause the video, and re-watch certain parts of the video. Your survey for completion for this video can be found at www.wiseK12.org/forstaff/PD survey. So you're able to go on and fill out that survey. This is also the sign-in sheet for this assignment, for this video. So we would recommend that you fill this out. This generates your certificate of completion for this hour of video that you have now attended, and this hour of professional development. If you are a part of the Google Classroom that we have for module creation and module completion, this is your assignment for your Google Classroom module. If you're not a member of that Google Classroom and you'd like to join, first of all, you need to be a member of Wise County Public Schools, so you do have to have a wiseK12.org email address. But you will need to go to Google Classroom and type in our class code, and we can get you that class code in the description below. But your assignment for Google Classroom is to create a Google form quiz that incorporates the following features: a picture, video, and 4 different types of questions. We want you to post the link to that quiz in the comments of the assignment portal in our 2017 Spring PD Google Classroom. When this assignment has been accomplished, we really would love if you would go ahead and mark this assignment as complete. That way we know that you've done the assignment and we can give you a grade on it. That will then generate your certificate of completion for that assignment. Again, these modules are worth a half credit of assignment of recertification point and PD points. The video itself is worth a whole PD point. So you are going to get a professional development credit, 1 professional development credit for this video, and a half if you complete this module. And again, here is our contact information. If you need to get in touch with any of us, we have our email addresses here along with our Twitter accounts and our YouTube channels. So you can follow any of us on Twitter or YouTube, and you can also check us out on or get a hold of us through email. And we would also invite everyone to join our Google Educator group that we have for the Southwestern Virginia region. It is wiseK12.org/GAG-SWVA, and this is a great place for you to get resources and how-tos and ask questions if you have any questions for anyone in our area. And this is a great resource and a great community for you to be able to join. So we recommend that you join the Google Educator group for Southwestern Virginia. Again, that is wiseK12.org/GAG-SWVA. And that is our training on Google Forms, creating Google Forms. and creating a quiz using Google Forms. We also want to welcome you to join in tomorrow. After school's out, we're going to post a video that we do every 2 weeks. And this video series is called Talking EdTech. And we're going to sit around and we're going to talk about different technologies that are available, different technologies that impress us. Tomorrow's topic is going to be really neat. It's dead tech. And no, we're not looking at one of our technicians here or one of the ITRTs and the decaying process of those, but what happened in technology and what has happened in technology over time, the technologies that are no longer used or are dead to us, such as big time overhead projectors and somewhat notebooks and such, and how those have been replaced with better technologies or more advanced technologies, and how technology has evolved over time in the classroom. So tune in tomorrow and be sure to check out tomorrow's video on Talking EdTech. We're going to be doing the topic of dead tech, or the evolution of technology in the classroom. But we do want to thank you for tuning in for our video series. We thank you for tuning in for today's video on creating Google Forms and creating quizzes in Google Forms. Next week's video is going to be on using Remind.com. So tune in next week at 4:30 on Thursday, and we will have you another after-school professional development. Have a great evening. We will see you next time.